Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for presence here. Today, it's our webinar about North Carolina. So we are talking today why North Carolina, why we need to do business in North Carolina, what is the benefits and what is the advantage of the state. Before we move into the details of the state, I'm going to present Drummond. So Drummond Advisors is a company that specializes in internationalization to US. Okay, so every country that willing to do business in US can contact Drummond. So Drummond, we position ourselves in market as a one-stop shop, so we can do all necessary business to open business and maintain a business in US in Drummond in-house. So Drummond, it's accounting, tax, legal, and advisor entity. We are specializing in consulting international transaction. The team include CPAs and legal certified both US and Brazil. We have offices located in Boston, Miami, and Orlando in the US, and in Brazil, we have in São Paulo and Belo Horizonte. We have more than 15 years of experience, more than 12K active clients and a team, more than 300 professionals in Brazil and US, across the world. So if you guys planning to do an international business with US, or in Brazil, so please contact Drummond. We can do 100% of the necessary business in both countries since the step one until the end. So today we have my friend Justin Belito, Justin, the business development manager of North Carolina State, that's going to present us what is the benefits to do business in North Carolina and why North Carolina. Justin, thank you so much for our participation. Welcome to our webinar. And please share with us what is the benefits to do business with the state.
Thank you. Thank you, Francisco. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And for those of you who are not familiar with North Carolina, who haven't had a chance to visit yet, or maybe have only heard about it in the press or just from colleagues or friends or family, I hope this is companies that are coming from Brazil or pretty simple. It's to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for all North Carolinians. And there's almost 11.5 million of us now. We are a public-private nonprofit entity. So we were formerly part of the Commerce Department, a government entity, but they spun us out about 10 years ago to create a new, more effective organization, a more nimble organization. But effectively, our boss is, well, not only just the people of North Carolina, but the governor and the Secretary of Commerce. So we work for them, we're contracted by them, but we do not charge for any of our services that we provide to companies. And essentially what we can do is we can help companies find a site. So we have a project management team who assists with site selection, building search. We can assist with research if you're trying to understand supply chains, demographics, labor data, you name it. We can assist with all those factors. So we really are a one-stop shop. We can provide holistic services to your company. We also have the small business team within our organization that can help you set up a business. So if you're looking to incorporate in North Carolina, set up an LLC, register your company, we have a team that can do that. We also have an international trade team, which I'll mention later on, but they're a very effective tool and a very, I think, underutilized tool by a lot of international companies that are coming to our state. And they can help you export your product to other markets outside of North Carolina, other markets abroad. And we'll talk about our logistics and connectivity to the world shortly, but you'll see why they could be an asset, especially if you are looking to use North Carolina as a launch pad to other parts of the world, whether it's Europe, Middle East, even closer by like Canada or Mexico.
Nice. Justin, just before we keep going, let's just make a point that everyone, we have Andressa with us. She is it's gonna translate from English to Portuguese if you prefer to hear the presentation in Portuguese. So you just need to click on the button named More, and it's gonna be an interpretation button over there. Vou falar em português, tá, pessoal? Perdão por não ter mencionado antes, mas antes da gente entrar em detalhes de North Carolina, a gente tem a Andressa, que é a nossa tradutora, tá ao vivo, e para vocês escutarem, para ter a tradução, é só clicar no botão More, dos 3 pontinhos, clicar em Interpretation, e a Andressa vai traduzir ao vivo para vocês, tá bom? Justin, thank you for the space. Please.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I figured to get started, we'll play a little bit of icebreaker game. So if we can go down a couple slides, the slide where the pictures are, that's going to be our game. Next one, right there. So one of these pictures is from Brazil. The rest are from North Carolina. So if you can put in the message, the chat box, which one you think is the picture of a location in Brazil. If you can get it corrected, if you can correctly guess, you will. Well, you won't win a prize, but you will win a sense of pride in knowing your country better than everybody else. So pick one of the numbers. One of the numbers next to the photos is from Brazil. The rest are from North Carolina. Which one do you think is the picture of a location in Brazil? And I don't know if I can actually see what people are typing. Here we go.
I will start,
Yeah.
and I can tell. I would add that number 2 is Brazil. I might be wrong, but looks like Lençóis Maranhenses that we have on the north of Brazil.
Let's see if we have any other guesses. Let's see if anything else comes through. No more guesses? Well, in the interest of time, I will confirm that Francisco, you are correct. You get to keep your Brazilian passport. You are fully Brazilian, but yes, it is number 2. And so the reason I brought this game up is I thought it's I think one of the things that companies and individuals look for when they're looking to locate in the U.S. is where am I going to feel at home, right? So not only where you're going to feel at home in the business world, but also personally. And I think there's a lot of similarities between Brazil and North Carolina, especially in our climate, our topography. So I thought I would play this game just to kind of highlight the uniqueness of North Carolina, but also to show that it's maybe not as different as you think or as exotic or foreign. So on the upper left-hand corner, those are some of our mountains in Western North Carolina. As you can see, with a lot of tree coverage, very green. So that will come up later on when we talk about some of our key industries. We have over 3,000 miles of coastline and very underdeveloped, pristine beach. So you'll have some of the more unique coastline in the United States that's not developed with hotels and residential construction. So we also have some wild horses. So that picture in the bottom right corner are some of the wild horses in Shackleford Island. So they've been there for hundreds of years after Spanish shipwreck. So another very unique asset for our state. And then in the far left, bottom left corner, we have an old fort. So similar to Brazil with many of the Portuguese forts, we also have a lot of forts that dot our coastline from especially from the American Civil War, but even before that Revolutionary era. So Francisco, sorry you don't win a prize, but maybe next time. Your prize.
By the way, the other pictures looks like Brazil a lot.
There we have it. A little bit of piece of a glimpse into North Carolina, and thanks to our marketing team, they did
mais no YouTube, temos vários vídeos também, e também para CEOs, executivos, indústrias já existentes.
Reasons we've been ranked consistently the top state for business by CNBC and other ranking organizations is because of the work that our marketing team has done to get the message out about North Carolina. And, you know, as someone who's lived in multiple states, I can truly tell you that North Carolina is just one of those states that, you know, once you come and you see it in person, you know, it's hard to leave, right? It has a lot of the qualities that people look for in a place to live, but also business too. So we'll dive into that right now. So next slide, please. Hang on a second. Oh, sorry, go back one more slide. Mine's frozen. Okay, sorry, my computer was frozen. So just some quick facts. We are the third fastest growing state in the United States after Texas and Florida. So currently population 11 million. We're projected to be the 7th most populous state within the next 4 to 5 years. So that's just around the corner. So we see the growth continuing into the future. We have the largest labor force in the Southeast, largest manufacturing labor force too. And just in terms of GDP, kind of a fun little fact is we have a similar nominal GDP to the country of Taiwan. You can just kind of see an overview of some of the logistical access we have. We'll go into that further in a little bit, but we have access to the ocean. We have 3 distinct regions. So the coast is, you know, climate-wise, it's probably going to be similar to like a Florianopolis, southern Brazil coastal area. The middle of the state, the Piedmont region, which encompasses our biggest cities like Raleigh, Durham, which is where I'm sitting in an office in Raleigh right now. Charlotte, Greensboro, a couple others. That is the most populous area of the state. Similar climate to like Curitiba, Porto Alegre. And then if you go to the mountains, Asheville area, you saw some of the green rolling mountains there. Very similar to parts of Brazil, to like Campos de Jordão. So you get a little bit of both, a little bit of everything. You get the coast. If you want to go fishing, go to the beach, go surfing, you can go skiing in the mountains. We have big cities, we have small towns, so we have a little bit of everything. Next slide, please. Oh, and I mentioned fastest growing state. So almost 500 people move to North Carolina every day on average. Charlotte is about 180 people every day alone. So that means a lot of growth, a lot of new houses, a lot of new businesses, a lot of new things, new amenities. So quality of life, you'll see this, you know, sprinkled throughout, but one of the things we like to drive home is just our cost of living. So you have some of the most skilled workforce in the country, but you're still going to be below the national average for wages, cost of living, even just affordability for homes. You're looking at about $330,000 average home price. And the U.S. national average is about $360,000. Florida, for example, is about $374,000. So we're one of the more competitive areas for housing. So we'll go to the next slide, please. But this is really one of the most important factors in our growth and our the reason that we are who we are today is because of our location, right? You know, we've done a lot of things right on our end, but some of it is just sort of luck, right? We're located in the right place. So you're right in the middle of the East Coast. You have ample access to majority of the U.S. markets. You have about half of the U.S. population within 11 hours, which is the federal limit that truck drivers can go within one shift. You also have access to about 20% of the Canadian population. You have multiple corridors going through the state, including the busiest highway in the East Coast, which is I-95. And I don't want to pick on Florida, because the reason I bring it up is because so many Brazilian companies and entrepreneurs look to go to Florida first because of familiarity, because of proximity, and just reputation too. But logistically, North Carolina is in a much better spot if you're looking to move goods. Also, we have port access too. So if you're bringing products from Brazil, you can still have access to seaports and then get those things on a truck or on a rail and ship it out to the rest of the US or Canada. I also want to mention our international connectivity with air. We do have the 6th busiest airport in the world. It is the American Airlines hub, so you can pretty much get anywhere you need to go. We have 50 plus nonstop international destinations. Our port, too, I mentioned our port earlier, it is rated the most efficient port in North America. So it's not the biggest by any means, but it's the most efficient. So that means you can get your goods off the boat into the hands of your customers or your suppliers quicker than any other port. Unlike many ports like Charleston or Norfolk, which are nearby, our port is unique too because once the boats show up, the train leaves every night from the port. Other ports will not leave until the train is full, which could be a day, it could be 3 days, it could be a week, depending on what's going on in the world. So you're able to get your goods to market much faster using our port versus some of the competing ports. But you also have access to Charleston, Norfolk, Savannah, even into Florida if you're looking to do some intermodal movement of goods. But for example, Charleston is one of the big automotive port in the Southeast. So even for certain goods, it might make sense to use other ports outside the state, but it's all part of the larger ecosystem. Next slide, please. So business kind some of the industries I'll talk about today, these are our key industries you can see here. Some of them we'll spend more time on because I think they're maybe more relevant for the Brazilian market, or based on some of the questions I received earlier, we might focus on certain industries more. But really, North Carolina is diverse in its industry mix. There are definitely industries that it is world famous for, such as furniture manufacturing and textiles, and we'll talk about that later. But it is known as the furniture capital of the world, and it has the highest concentration of textile mills in the US. So those are two legacy industries that we'll dive in deeper later. But some of the industries that we do excel at that I'm not going to have time to talk about, but if you have questions later, you can reach out, are things like industrial machinery and robotics, forestry, lumber, paper, packaging. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but we don't have a designated slide per se. Building supplies and components, building envelope systems, we're really big on that. For example, like shingles, glass manufacturing, roofing, siding, you name it. We have the largest shingle factory in North America, for example. So you can basically source an entire house within our state. Mining and critical mineral processing is another one that is becoming increasingly important. We have the basically sole source of high quality quartz that's used in semiconductors and medical devices and even luxury watches. So there's a mine in North Carolina that supplies most of that to the world. Also, we have the largest hard rock lithium deposits in North America. So we really have the full supply chain when it comes to many industries, but that's one that we won't dive into too deep today. Metals and forging is there's quite a cluster of that in our state. Also semiconductors and microelectronics, which we won't go into, but we have several companies that are based here in that field. Tech too, we'll talk about some tech like fintech and ag tech, but North Carolina, especially the Research Triangle, is sort of recognized as Silicon Valley East. We're home to Apple's East Coast headquarters, for example. We have IBM has one of their largest locations outside of their headquarters here. Apple, or I mentioned Apple already, Google, Meta, NVIDIA has their second office ever opened here in Durham, North Carolina. Microsoft is here, Lenovo has their headquarters, OpenAI is here, Cisco, Epic Games has their headquarters. So if any of your kids are Fortnite players, we apologize, that's a North Carolina product. So don't blame us if they're not doing their homework. Salesforce is here, Oracle. Esports is very popular here too. It's one of the destinations for esports. We won't have time to talk about boat building and marine tech, but that's another big industry that overlaps with Brazil. Defense, we won't talk about very much. Ceramics, glass, wires, cables, other types of manufacturing. So there's a lot to talk about, but we're going to focus on maybe like 5 or 6 industries that are in the list above. Next slide, please. And I want to pause real quick just to make sure there's no questions or any clarifications needed. No? All right, so if you can take one thing away from this presentation, I want you to take away the top bullet point there. And so North Carolina has the lowest corporate income tax of any state in the US. Now, there are some states like Texas that do a gross receipts tax, which is a little bit different. You're taxed on your revenue, not your profit. Whereas in North Carolina, we do a traditional corporate income tax where you're taxed on your profit after expenses. But we have the lowest business tax of any state in the US. Currently, it sits at 2.25%. But as you can see there, starting in 2030, that number will be reduced to 0%. So starting when you do your taxes from 2029, businesses will pay 0% corporate income tax, state corporate income tax. Now, there's still federal taxes. We do a personal income tax. It's very low. That's also being reduced to 3.99%. But we are trying to make it as easy as possible to do business in our state. And that's available to any type of company, any industry, any size, whether you're a conglomerate or a mom and pop startup. So you can see how we compare to some of the other states there. Again, don't want to pick on Florida, but Florida is one of our competitors, but also a big landing spot for Brazilians. So you can see how we compare. Florida has no personal income tax, which can be a benefit for some, but we like to say that with your personal income tax in the state, you're getting it, think of it as an investment. That money, it's already very low, by the way, compared to other states. But you're using that money to help educate the workforce, pay for schools, pay for fire, pay for road infrastructure that's going to help business thrive and flourish. So we want to charge low taxes, but still enough to not just keep the lights on, but keep the population growing and people have the opportunity to be upskilled for future investments. Next slide, please. So some other key factors for our business climate, looking at real estate, we are very competitive. So our industrial lease rate is about 38% lower than the national average. Now that depends on the market, of course. There's certain markets that are more expensive in our state. Certain types of office space, like Class A, is going to be more expensive, or like if you're looking for a clean room facility, it's going to be more expensive than a traditional warehouse, for example. But in general, you're going to see very competitive rates here. There's certain parts of the state that are much cheaper, even below this 38%. Electricity costs too. You're looking at about 30% lower rates, which is big for certain industries that use a lot of power. Water rates too, we're the third lowest in the nation. I also want to mention we have water availability. Water is becoming harder to find in a lot of states, especially out west, but we have been able to manage our resources very well and put in infrastructure, not just for water, but also wastewater, that is allowing sites to be ready and companies to expand or to enter the market. So water is available and cheap here. Construction costs are going to be lower too, which is very important, especially now with rising costs of doing business, labor, even labor shortages too. Our unionization rate is quite low, which some people can talk about the benefits because you're training workers, but there's a lot of companies that have more flexibility because they don't have to negotiate the unions. And oftentimes the workers can actually have more autonomy and be able to receive higher wages because they can shop around for different contracts. So might not be a factor in your decision making, but it's one less piece of red tape. And speaking of red tape, I think this is kind of a cool statistic, but we have the 6th best permitting efficiency in the country. So that means that we have the fastest construction permit approval in the country of any state. And as we all know, time is money. So the best incentive is not necessarily cash, but time. So if you can get a project up and running quicker, construction going quicker, or even just a building reuse, if you're retrofitting a building, less red tape means you can start making your product and selling it sooner and make money. All right, next slide, please. Or next slide, please. So North Carolina is renowned for its manufacturing prowess. So these are a couple of the industries that have been growing the most the last decade here, or last 5 years now, I guess. But we rank 8th in the nation for manufacturing contribution to gross national product. We have the largest manufacturing ecosystem and workforce in the Southeast. You can see that there on the slide. we have almost 500,000 production workers in the state, and that number is growing too. So not only are we receiving new residents from other states, but we're also training our existing population to be able to do the jobs of the future. What else should you know? I think this is kind of a key data point, but about 90% of the manufacturers have fewer than 100 employees. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to talk about like some big companies, Fortune 500, but I want you to be aware that, you know, everything applies to small companies just as much to large companies. And in fact, you know, we want to have small companies because we want to be able to work with them, walk beside them, and help them grow and stay in the state. And also, you know, we want to just create more opportunities. So we're not putting all our eggs in one basket, you know, putting all our resources and time and energy into one large company. We want to see, you know, lots of parts of the state grow, and not every part of the state is going to be able to attract a large Fortune 500 manufacturing operation. You know, maybe the western part of North Carolina, they don't have the land or the people to employ thousands and thousands of people in the factory. So we want to find a good industrial mix to give all of our communities opportunity in North Carolina. Next slide, please. So the next few slides are going to be about specific industries. So there'll be some wage data, some labor availability. I think it's just good for you to know that, one, we have the people. That's one of the biggest factors, or one of the biggest challenges right now is the lack of labor in a lot of states. Also the cost of labor too. So you'll see that we are still very competitive. You know, one of the reasons we've been able to attract a lot of like life science, for example, which we'll go into later, is because we have the same skill sets as the other big bio hubs like Southern California, Boston area, but at a much cheaper rate. So just keep that in mind. If you ever need any specific data on wages or labor availability for specific roles or industries, you can always reach out to us. We have an excellent research team that's happy to provide those products to you. But this is, you know, advanced manufacturing. Everything's basically advanced manufacturing at this point. So this is kind of a general slide, but if we go to the next one, we'll start to get a little bit more granular. Next slide, please. All right, so one of the I think great business factors in North Carolina too is that we are a corporate epicenter. We have a lot of large companies that are based here, a lot of industries that make this a large cluster or even a specialized hub. And with that comes supply chains, comes buyers, comes opportunities to not just manufacture in our state, but also to have the end user in the state. Next slide, please. So I'll talk about some of the large corporate companies and headquarters that are based in our state. Again, these are potential buyers, people that are going to be end users of products, or they've helped establish existing supply chain or infrastructure in the state. So the infrastructure could be physical, like roads and rails. The reason we have so many international flights is because of many of these large companies need to move people across the globe. Charlotte's a large airport because of all of the international companies that are based there. But these companies, especially large companies, have also helped develop specialized training and workforce development, whether it's at the community college or different universities. So, and in turn, it's allowed smaller companies to take advantage of those resources. So we have 12 Fortune 500 companies that are based in our state. We also have 26 Fortune 1000 companies. So those are all key companies in our economy. If you go to the next slide, you can kind of see some of the more well-known North Carolina brands or companies. So not every one of these companies is a Fortune 500 or 1000, but some of them are just well-known brands in North Carolina. Oh, sorry, it looks like there's a little error on the slide with one of the logos. Apologies for that. But you have companies like Bank of America, which has their headquarters in Charlotte. Oh, I think we went. Yeah, there you go. So Bank of America, for example, is one of the largest. It's the largest Fortune 500 company in our state. Has its headquarters in Charlotte. Lowe's is another one. It's the second largest consumer hardware retail destination in the country. Also a large exporter and importer of goods. I know there's a lot of wood that they import from Brazil. other components too. So something to keep in mind if you're in that industry and looking for an end user or looking to have your product in a marketplace. There's a little bit of everything here. So textiles, Haineswear, for example, is based here. Contour Brands, which is the owner of Wrangler Jeans and Lee Jeans. So textile is something we're very well known for. And there's a lot of legacy companies as a result of that. Furniture is another one. So you'll see a lot of furniture companies like Stanley, legacy companies, but even more advanced companies like Kawani Scientific, which makes furniture for medical laboratories. Nucor is the largest steel company in North America, or in the United States at least. It's a very important driver of supply chain in our state. Honeywell is another one. They're involved in many different facets of the world, whether it's consumer electronics, aerospace, you name it. So they're headquartered in Charlotte. Most recently, Scout Automotive announced they would locate their corporate headquarters to Charlotte. Scout is a subsidiary of Volkswagen, so that's pretty exciting news. Also, Maersk, just a couple weeks ago too, announced their new North American headquarters in Charlotte. And they've already had significant investments here at our port, but another big one, and they're going to have their name on a tower in downtown Charlotte. Krispy Kreme is one that probably everybody knows. It's an internationally recognized brand for donuts, but that's born and bred here in North Carolina. So these are just a few. If you have any questions about them later, feel free to or reach out afterwards. But I just wanted to bring these up because they might be customers of yours. You might be involved in the same supply chains as them. NASCAR is another cool one that is based here. We are the center of the motorsports industry in the U.S. So NASCAR is here. Most of the racing teams are here. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Two companies I want to mention. Albemarle has a joint venture with Petrobras to build a hydroprocessing catalyst plant in Brazil. So they're based here in North Carolina, a large mineral mining company, especially in the lithium battery industry. So, trying to draw attention to Brazil connections. Also, Epic Games, which is based right here in Raleigh, where I sit. It has Epic Games Brazil. They have their first office in Brazil. They acquired a company a couple of years ago, and so they were there as well. All right, next slide, please. All right, so automotive is a very important industry here and definitely aligns with Brazilian supply chains. But there's about 300 automotive and EV manufacturers. So North Carolina sits in the heart of not only the automotive belt, but also the battery belt. So you can build a car from start to finish. And I'm talking all the way down to the raw materials, whether it's a lithium for the battery, quartz for different components, or even the metals used for wiring. You can build everything in a car from the raw material all the way to assembly. So we make everything from glass to foam to fabrics. Again, our textile legacy. There's metal forging, metal stamping, carbon fiber. We're very well known for carbon fiber. For example, NASCAR, the racing technology is being used in other types of automotive industry too. Chips and electronics. Wolfspeed is a large supplier of semiconductors for the automotive industry. They're based here in North Carolina. Paints and adhesives too, which we'll see there's even some Brazilian companies involved in that, which we'll talk later. Robotics even used to manufacture the cars on the assembly line, and software. We also have some great workforce development too. So we have, especially at University of North Carolina, Charlotte, they have a world-renowned motorsports engineering center. And then even at the community college level, we have a lot of workforce training specifically for automotive industry. One thing I'll say, and we'll go to the next slide real quick, please. North Carolina, when it comes to OEMs, North Carolina is renowned for its ability to produce heavy machinery and especially trucks. So you have companies like Daimler, Volvo Trucks are based here. Cummins, Mack Trucks, they're all made here, especially in the Greensboro area, which is the northern part of the state. You also have Thomas-built buses. So most of the yellow school buses you see in the United States are made here in North Carolina. So we excel at that very specific niche of the automotive industry. The heavy machinery, Caterpillar, for example, makes excavators here. Now they're investing into battery electrified type of equipment. John Deere is also doing the same. So, and then most recently, Toyota, well, that Toyota is the largest investment in our state's history. So they have a facility that at peak will employ about 5,000 people. Right now it's at about 1,000. It's going to be, well, right now it's 7 million square feet, but it's going to be more than that. So massive factory, the size of a city. They're making batteries. So that's one of our crown jewels of investment. But with that's come a lot of different supply chain related to battery. Bridgestone too, we have a lot of tire factories. So both Bridgestone and Goodyear manufacture tires here. Bridgestone has almost 3 million square feet at their factory, so large production capabilities. A lot of defense too. So you have companies like GM Defense, which is based here. They make defense vehicles like Humvees and other type of all-terrain vehicles for the military. And one cool little thing I think is that Cadillac F1 is manufacturing their engine here and is the first US-based Formula One team that will begin competing next year. So kind of a cool little thing to put North Carolina on the map. But yeah, so this is just a small, tip of the iceberg when it comes to companies. These are some of the standout companies. Even paints too. PPG is on there. Sherwin-Williams, they make specific paint for the automotive industry. But this is just to give you a snapshot of why big companies choose North Carolina and some of the supply chains that are existing here. Next slide, please. Aerospace. So aerospace, again, a lot of overlap with automotive, but we're very specialized in North Carolina. So you can see we have a large location quotient of aerospace and aviation workers, over 50,000. A lot of suppliers too. We specialize specifically in propulsion systems manufacturing. So we make like Pratt & Whitney makes the turbines. GE Aerospace is also involved in that in North Carolina. Advanced materials, again, going back to textiles, that material science is built up a legacy in the state, which is extended to other industries. So we're very renowned for advanced materials for a lot of industries, but specifically aerospace, avionics, so the microelectronics, I talked about semiconductor here already, MRO too, so maintenance, repair, and overhaul. We have a lot of operations that repair and maintain fleets, both civilian and military. I did mention that Charlotte was the hub airport for American Airlines, so there's a lot of investment there in MROs, but also other parts of the state. And then the military footprint is another big driver for this large aerospace cluster. We have the 4th largest military footprint of any state. We have every branch represented except for the Space Force. So that's some of the reasoning behind it. But next slide will show you some of the ecosystem. The next slide, please. So you can see some of the standout companies. Some of them were on previous slides, but like Honda Jet, for example, has their North American headquarters in Greensboro, where they manufacture Honda jets. GE Aerospace, which just announced another expansion here, has some of their largest investments anywhere in North Carolina. Jet Zero was our biggest announcement of date. So that was, it would potentially be $5 billion in capital expenditure investment if it's all said and done, and it could employ up to 14,000 people. So that's a best case scenario. We know how not every project turns out the way we want to, but that company specifically chose North Carolina over Alabama because they saw our workforce, they saw our existing supply chain, and the advantages of doing business here. Boom Supersonic's another one that is very cutting edge. They're trying to bring back supersonic travel for civilians. So they have deals with major carriers, and they're in the process of developing their technology as we speak. Next slide, please. I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions, comments, anything?
Everyone, you can post your question on our chat, and I can read that to Justin, okay? So far, no question, Justin. You can.
All right. So moving on to food and beverage, which is another industry that has a lot of alignment with Brazil. We have one of the top 5 food processing industries in the United States. We're also top 10 for agribusiness, so we're the largest agri state in the Southeast and top 10 in the country. We have over 72,000 food and beverage manufacturing workers and growing. So some of the things I want to highlight, so even if you're not ready to necessarily make that investment yourself, we have a lot of co-packers in the state. So there's a lot of companies you could contract to make a product for you, especially if you're moving something in a heavy packaging like glass. Maybe it doesn't make sense to export it. So you can contract somebody in North Carolina, and then when the timing's right, perhaps you can do that process yourself in North Carolina. But there's a lot of co-packers, a lot of private label manufacturers. There's also a lot of companies that make and develop packaging from plastics, glass. We have a lot of glass companies here. Aluminum, so Ball, for example, Ball Aluminum is constructing a new plant down in Charlotte to produce aluminum cans for beverages. And we even have more specialized type of packaging too for different, unique customer needs. Cold storage is also another thing our state is investing in heavily, or companies are investing in our state, especially because of the port and pharmaceutical industry. Cold storage is growing, and so there's a lot of opportunities for to rent warehouse space in cold storage if you're looking to move products or store products. So we're very well known for that. We also have a lot of ingredient producers, whether that's oils, enzymes, flavors, seasonings. North Carolina is known for barbecue, so a lot of people make barbecue sauce and seasonings, but even more advanced ingredients like different enzymes and gums and companies that are experimenting with different flavors for oils that are vegetable-based but have meat flavors or meat profiles. We also are known for our fisheries and aquaculture too. So we have about 70 marine species that are in our fisheries in North Carolina. Also a lot of beer and liquor. Asheville especially is a large beer manufacturing hub in the East Coast. And liquor too. Kind of a fun story is that NASCAR was invented because of bootleggers, people that were smuggling liquor in the Appalachian part of the state. They had to outrun the police when they were driving their cars, and so that's how the sport of NASCAR was born, all because of liquor. So while we're not a top liquor producing state, for example, we do have a lot of small distilleries, North Carolina whiskey, but it's a big part of our history regardless. But beer is definitely something we do excel in. One thing I want to bring to your attention is we have a lot of grocery stores that are based here. And so what that means is that the buyers are also based here. So whether you're exporting your product or if you're looking to manufacture it in North Carolina, you have access to those buyers. You can go to their office, they're here in the state, and if they make orders, you have an opportunity to locate in our state and be close to one of your large customers. So Harris Teeter is the largest, which they're now owned by Kroger, which is the largest grocery brand in the country, but they are based here in North Carolina and Charlotte. Food Lion is another one, another large regional grocer. Alex Lee, Fresh Market, Lowe's Food Market. So those are 5 of the biggest. So just be aware of that. I think that's if you're looking, especially the food and beverage industry, if you're looking to get your product to market, it's always a benefit to be close to buyers. And then ag tech is also a very critical industry in North Carolina, and I have a separate slide for that we'll go over. But much like the automotive industry, where we have everything from the raw ingredients to the finished product, same thing with food and beverage. So not only do we have the feedstock and the crops, which we'll talk about in the next slide, we have companies that make food processing equipment. We have the cold storage, the cold chain economy here. So transport from the ports on trucks, rail, etc. We also have ag tech, so companies that are developing crop resiliency technologies, software programs for farming efficiency, all the way to companies that are developing drone technology to monitor crops, or even the threat of fire, for example, to farmland. So really one of the top states for ag tech. So next slide, please. So some of the, if you're looking to source raw ingredients or be close to the raw ingredients as you potentially develop a product, if you're in the food and beverage industry, these are some of the crops or products, the feedstock that we are leaders in the country. So sweet potatoes, we are the #1 sweet potato producer in the United States. So you can see here we're over 50% of the US crop. And yes, the word sweet potatoes is one word. That is the official terminology. I was told that by the Sweet Potato Commission, the director of the Sweet Potato Commission in North Carolina. So one word, but lots of berries, strawberries, blueberries, lots of fruits, watermelon, bell peppers. Tobacco, we are still the #1 tobacco producer in the United States. And we still have companies like RJ Reynolds, which is based here. And you'll see the legacy of the tobacco industry throughout the state. You'll see a lot of the old factories have been converted to mixed use, to housing, to other industrial uses. So it's really ingrained in our identity as a state. Cotton too, we are one of the top cotton producers, which is one of the reasons why we have such a large textile industry. Christmas trees, now that it's that time of year, we are the #2 producer of Christmas trees in the US after Oregon on the West Coast. Pork, we are one of the top pork producers in the country. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second because there's some big names. Smithfield is one of them. They're the largest employer in the state, actually, a manufacturing employer. Turkey and chicken. So we are the #1 poultry state. If you combine turkey and chicken and you weigh them, we're the #1 by weight. If you break them up, and you just talk about numbers of chickens, we are #4, but we are considered one of the top poultry states, or the top poultry state in the United States, in North America. Also seafood too. I mentioned a couple of the different species we have, but we're one of the top producers of blue crab. We're the #2 producer of trout in the United States. And then lumber. We're also well known for our lumber. We have the 4th most total forested acreage in the country, and about 99% of that is commercially available for logging. So we have both hardwood, softwood, but one of the reasons why the furniture industry is so strong here is because of the access to the raw material. And we also export a lot to Asia, where they don't have, for example, Vietnam doesn't have the proper type of wood or enough wood to produce the furniture, now that that's become the epicenter of furniture manufacturing. So North Carolina sends a lot of wood products to Vietnam, for example. I also want to note too, we have a very wide variety of growing zones. So you can replicate about 90% of the world's growing regions in our state, because you have mountains, you have high elevation, and we have the highest mountains in the East Coast. So you're about a mile up. So there's certain crops that can or can't grow there. You have the coastal region, you have the sandhills, the different soil profiles. So you can really grow a lot of different variety of crops and have a long growing season. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the food and beverage leaders in the country. And so I've included companies too that are also manufacturing food processing machinery. So like Electrolux, Bosch, they have large factories that produce equipment, or even consumer appliances like refrigerators and dishwashers and blenders, etc. Cold storage, United States cold storage is a large company. Maersk also has a lot of cold storage here. I put some packaging companies on here like Ball. Pet food isn't something we do a lot of too. So Nestle Purina is on there. We do a lot of confectionery, so Morinaga. One of the reasons why Morinaga chose our state this is a Japanese company that makes haichus. I'm not sure if those are available in Brazil, but they're very popular Japanese candy here in the US. This was their first factory outside of Japan, and they chose it because they had access to the raw gelatin from the pork as a pork byproduct because of our large pork industry. So that's kind of a interesting connection. You wouldn't associate, candy with pork, but the two are very much entwined with each other. Also, I put some ag tech companies down here like Syngenta. We'll talk about that in a second. But we have large multinational corporations like Bimbo, which has multiple investments here. JBS, of course, is Brazilian. They have Pilgrim's Food, so they're a large investor in the turkey industry here. Have several plants, even coffee too. So another crossover with Brazil. North Carolina has has the largest coffee roaster in the country, aside from Starbucks, but Counterculture is the largest, say, independent coffee roaster. But there's a lot of coffee roasters and industries here. So it could be another opportunity if you're in the coffee business in Brazil. Also the largest pickle factory in the United States in Mount Olive Pickles. So Next slide, please. Now, ag tech is, I think, what sets us apart, because we'll talk about life science after this, and the two are really connected, but North Carolina is world famous for its ag tech. In fact, NC State University is recognized as one of the top 3 plant science ag tech schools, universities in the country, if not one of the top in the world. So one of the things I want to mention is that they actually have an agreement with Embrapa in Brazil, and they're doing a lot of research on soy. So the genesis of that is really because of there's the Bezos Institute at North Carolina State University. Jeff Bezos donated money to create this institute that would be focused on meat alternatives and cultured lab meats. So there's companies that have used that technology, like Believer Meats, which is in the last slide. They're an Israeli-based company that just opened their first factory here, producing cultivated meat products. But because of the investment by the Bezos Institute at North Carolina State University, there's been a lot of focus on soy research. And because of that, they've done a lot of missions to Brazil to work with the scientists there to understand the soy industry there, as the world leader Brazil is. But they've also signed agreements with Embrapa to help develop these ag tech connections. So something to keep an eye on if you are in that field or even adjacent to it. Next slide, please. Financial services. So 1 second, my computer is frozen here. All right, 1 second. Okay. One thing you might not be aware of is that North Carolina is the 2nd largest banking hub after New York City. And that's only growing. We're seeing a lot of investment in new offices, in new fintech projects, especially in Charlotte, but also there's other banks based across the state. We are the #2 largest banking center in the US after New York City. We have a huge and growing fintech workforce. You can see 17,000. We have 3 financial services Fortune 500 companies that are headquartered here, Bank of America being the largest, but Truist is also here, and Wells Fargo has, even though they're not based here, has their largest workforce footprint here. But you can see there's over 250,000 financial services workers. So these are very skilled, high-end workers. So we're not talking about people that are, a bank teller necessarily. We're talking about people that are tech workers that are developing algorithms to help, new financial products come to market. We also have a Federal Reserve branch here in Charlotte, so that's another driver for some of these projects. If you go to the next slide, please, you can see some of those companies that are based here. So I mentioned Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Truist. Those are the 3 big ones. The insurance industry is also very large here too, especially the reinsurance industry. So for companies or residents or other entities that can't receive insurance because of disaster, for example, they have to go to these reinsurance industries. So that's very strong here. We have companies like Live Oak Bank, which is the largest small business lender in the United States. They're based in Wilmington area on the coast. And you have a lot of companies that aren't based here, but they have very niche offices here or a presence, like Cash App has a tech office here. Synchrony Bank has a tech office here. Lending Tree is based here, doing a lot of research and development of new technologies. Fidelity has a huge footprint here. Recently, Pacific Life just announced an expansion. Citibank just announced an expansion here. Espida just announced they're going to employ 1,000 people here. They're in the underwriting industry. Credit Karma is another company that's growing and seeing a lot of success. Ally as well. Also a lot of international banks. So Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, and we have several big projects in the works that potentially we'll announce either before the end of the year or next year with our fintech or financial industry related that could employ another 3,000 plus people in North Carolina. So I should note there is a Brazilian fintech company that has located in Charlotte. The name is Monkey. They have a very small team here, but they are growing, and we hope that further Brazilian tech and fintech or financial service companies will come to North Carolina as a result of that. Next slide, please. Now, life science. It's really hard to fully encompass how important life science is to North Carolina in just a couple slides. And, so I didn't want to try to put too much on it because it's such a critical industry. It's been our fastest growing industry the last couple of decades. But we are recognized as one of the top 3 destinations in the US for life sciences. And for biomanufacturing, we are ranked #1. Especially now with the new weight loss drugs, the injection drugs, most of those are being made here. A lot of new vaccines. So if you're looking to do biomanufacturing, so not just the research and development, but to make the physical product, North Carolina has become the go-to destination in the United States. And so this is just a small snippet of some of the big companies. I mean, Johnson & Johnson has billions of dollars of investments. They employ thousands of people across the state. They just began construction on a new $1 billion facility in Charlotte, but they've already been here in Johnston County for a decade now. Thermo Fisher Scientific is another big company that's been here. Fujifilm Diosynth, LabCorp, Eli Lilly employs thousands of people here. Novo Nordisk is one of the biggest investors in North Carolina. They've invested billions and billions over the last couple of decades through Novo Nordisk and Novartis, which is the subsidiary that makes the biologics. IQVIA is unique because North Carolina is the birthplace of contract research and especially clinical trials. So contract research organizations were created here in North Carolina. IQVIA was one of the original ones. It was originally called Quintiles, but so because of that, not only the manufacturing, but also the research side of things is North Carolina is one of the biggest hubs. So in the conversation, it's always Boston, California, especially Northern California and San Diego, and then North Carolina. So those are the 4 places where most of the medical biopharma research and manufacturing is happening in the United States. And we're seeing a lot of investments continue because of new tariffs and reshoring happening. So we're really excited to see where this is going to lead. We also have a very robust and highly ranked system of medical training. So we have Duke University, which is here, which is one of the top medical schools in the entire world. UNC Chapel Hill is here, and they're one of the top public schools in the country. So we're not just training people for research, but also for the medical practice too. And we do have 5 tier 1 research universities now. We'll talk about that in a second. But research parks, we have some of the most unique real estate options. So not just for large companies, but for small companies too. There's some really unique niche incubators for life sciences, and we'll talk about that at the very end. We're almost done, I promise. Hopefully you're not falling asleep from all this over information in North Carolina, but we'll get through this. The next slide, please. And now furniture. This is one I've been teasing throughout, but we are known as the furniture capital of the world, specifically High Point, North Carolina. And we have the largest furniture workforce in the US. And again, I mentioned that earlier, but it's not just making chairs and sofas, but it's making wood veneers, different types of wood products, foam products, acrylic products. There's a lot of research and development, especially for like polymers and adhesives and epoxy. So there's companies that are involved not just in the manufacture of furniture, but also the components that go into it. So whether it's on the chemical side, the rubber side, the plastic side, it's one of the highest concentrations of that industry in North America, or the highest. We have over 850 furniture manufacturers located in North Carolina, so over 2,000 suppliers. Now, unfortunately, because of offshoring over the years, we don't manufacture as much as we used to here in North Carolina. There's still quite a bit, but the R&D is based here. The corporate headquarters are based here. The distribution centers are based here, and we're starting to see an uptick in a desire to manufacture furniture back in the United States. And when companies are looking to do that, the first place they think is North Carolina. So we've been fielding calls about new furniture production opportunities. But one thing to keep in mind is, and this is an easy entry point for anybody on this call that might be involved in the furniture industry or textiles too, or home furnishings. We are home to the High Point Furniture Market, which is a biannual event. It happens twice a year. So it's in the fall and in the spring. It's the largest home furnishings industry trade show in the entire world. It's really unique. It's basically the entire city becomes a furniture showroom. And so you get to see the latest and greatest. There's a lot of big companies that have been there for generations. There's startups. And there's a sizable number of Brazilian companies. So there's a company called Geo that does lighting that's there every year. They have a showroom, but there's many others. There's companies that are there showing off textiles, whether it's leather, whether it's woven textiles. So it's a great opportunity if you're looking to get boots in the ground to see this industry. This is the trade show in the world. People come from all over the world to this city in North Carolina twice a year just to see the advances in the furniture market. Next slide, please. And these are some of the companies that I mentioned. So Sealy is headquartered here. They make mattresses, and even Ralph Lauren has huge investments here. So they do textiles and furniture, which maybe you didn't know, but Ralph Lauren does make furniture, not just clothing. Natuzzi has their North American headquarters here. Legacy brands like Bassett, Ethan Allen, Stanley. Ashley, although it's not based here, they have their largest operations here, warehousing and R&D. And then you have some more niche companies too that are doing more like, maybe they specifically supply hotels or, institutional suppliers, like they might supply universities or office space. So we have a little bit of everything. Kawani, I mentioned earlier, they do furniture for doctors' offices and medical laboratories. So very niche that has that crossover with life sciences that we talked about earlier. Next slide, please. Textiles, and so this is the last industry slide. I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of industries we won't get to. There might be mentions of them, but North Carolina just has so much. It's hard to talk about everything. But these are the most critical ones and the ones that might make the most sense to those on the call to explore. So the last one, again, one of our legacy industries, textile. You look at some of the numbers on there and you see just how concentrated the textile industry is in North Carolina. You have 650 textile product mills. There used to be thousands of them. Unfortunately, many have closed down over the years because of globalization and offshoring, but the ones that are here are especially advanced. They do things like ballistic fibers for defense and police. There's companies that are doing medical related fibers like new bioskin or fibers for heart stents or other types of medical devices, medical products. Nearly 20% of all U.S. exports are coming out of North Carolina, or textile exports. We have the largest non-woven industry in the U.S., so that's like wipes, diapers, even like if you go to a trade show and you get one of those bags, they could have been made in North Carolina. Even things for like farming, there's companies that make textiles that go around hay for farm animals or bedding for farm animals. So there's a lot of different uses, but 40% of the entire industry is produced in the United States, or in North Carolina alone. So that's an astonishing number. That's really very high concentration. We're the largest textile mill workforce in the country, so it's about 25% of all textile manufacturing people are in the state. And then the last thing I'll mention is we are home to the world's foremost educational institute on textiles, and that's the Wilson College of Textiles here at NC State University. And it is the only college in the United States that's entirely devoted to textiles education. So with that, there's a lot of opportunities for industry to get involved, whether it's research through their Zeiss Institute. They have a a prerogative to also assist companies that are looking to do research, or there's even some incubator opportunities if you're a small company looking to maybe use some of their equipment to do test runs, or looking for some expertise. So that's a great industry resource if you are in the textile industry. So next slide, please. So this is just a little map of some of those companies I mentioned. You can break it up in different subsectors, apparel and fibers. I mentioned some of those companies earlier, like Contour Brands, Hanes Brands. So there's well-known consumer brands that make things that we wear every day, all the way down to companies that are doing things for military or law enforcement needs. You know, transportation, we also do a lot of textiles for like automotive, so seat covers and different types of components that go in cars that are textile related. And then I mentioned the medical too. So that brings us to the end of the industry portion. So on the next slide, please. Next slide. Oh. So I hinted at a few of these companies earlier, but this is the profile of Brazilian investment in our state. And you can see it's growing. It's not as large as Florida, for example, which is the largest state for Brazilian investment, or even parts of the Northeast have quite a bit of investment. But we do have a lot, and it's growing. So there's 12 firms that are currently based in North Carolina from Brazil, or with Brazilian ownership. We are actually currently working with 3 companies, so potentially bringing in up to $30 million of new investment from Brazil. So we're excited about the future, and we've seen Brazil, the opportunities here because of the industries that we share: automotive, textiles, furniture, food and beverage, steel and metal manufacturing. So we have the large players in our state like JBS and Gerdau. But Vitessa is a great success story. They're in High Point. They do non-wovens. They make diapers, wipes, even like face masks. And they're growing. They're expanding in North Carolina, and they've been a great fit here. Yeah, we are excited for the future of what Brazilian companies hold, and we're hoping to create more connectivity between our states. So I just want to pause real quick. Francisco, how are we doing on time? Are we okay with time? Is there enough time to get through those last few slides?
Yeah, we can go ahead with until the end of the slides, just feel free.
Okay. All right, next slide, please. So talent, one of the biggest factors in our success has been access to talent, but also upskilling and retraining of talent. So you'll see that we have invested heavily in our community college system. We have 58, so you are never more than 30 minutes from a community college, no matter where you are in North Carolina. One of the great things about these community colleges is that they are highly customizable. So companies can work directly with the colleges to curate their curriculum so that students are learning specific tools and skills that they need to work in with that business. We can also work with the community colleges to help send instructors to the site of a factory to train workers directly on the floor with specialized machinery or specialized processes. So there's a lot of flexibility here. Back in the 50s, North Carolina was the first state in the US to really implement this customized training process. And it's become the standard operating procedure across the board. So every state has some version of this, but we were the first state to do it. We looked at what Germany was doing, what Austria was doing, the European Scandinavians, and we tried to replicate that as much as we could. So it's been very successful. Next slide, please. I talked about our universities, the 5 tier 1s, so the 3 most well-known and largest universities in terms of prestige are going to be North Carolina State University, which is the largest in the state. After that, Duke is one of the most world-renowned universities, and then UNC Chapel Hill, which is one of, or if not the top-rated public university in the United States. We also have, more recently, UNC Charlotte has been anointed as a Tier 1 research university, and then also East Carolina University. You see the little pirate symbol in the eastern part of the state, that's East Carolina. But they do a lot of medical research. That's in the heart of what we call the biopharma crescent. So that's where a lot of the big biopharma companies like Johnson & Johnson and Novo Nordisk are located, and that's where they get their workforce from. But we have a lot of smaller schools too. We have 52 universities in total, also 10 HBCUs, which for those of you who don't know, that stands for Historically Black College and University. But we have a lot of different majors, but engineering is something that we are able to, we excel at that. We've created a lot of new engineering workforce from our universities. Next slide, please. All right, so this is probably the thing many of you were interested in, incentive programs. So we'll try to get through this quickly. This is going to be a very high-level overview of it. If you have more specific questions, you can always reach out, or I can refer you to our website. But this is, I think this is a good starting point. Next slide, please. So this is our main incentive program. It's called the
Principal programa de investimento, que é o de empregos.
In the orange box. It's the number of new jobs created, the average wage of the new job, so it has to be at least the county average. Look at the amount of capital investment, the type of industry. So there's certain industries that we are trying to promote more than others. So we try to incentivize those industries more. Things like textile furniture, for example, or even like the battery industry. There's certain industries that we are able to provide more funds towards. Now, every industry is eligible for this grant or our incentive packages, but there's certain industries that we have a mandate from the legislative branch to pursue, especially harder. And then the county tier is another factor. So if we go to the next slide, you can see a map. Now this is our tier map. Oops, apologize. It's AI generated. Okay, I don't know what that box is there. Sorry about that. But this is a map that shows our tiers. So we have 99 counties in the entire state. We divide them into thirds. And the ones that are tier 3, the darker colors, are the most prosperous communities, the areas that have the highest level of investment. And in order to equally distribute some of the opportunities, we like to, not that we won't incentivize projects in the more prosperous areas, but there's a higher threshold. So if you're going to invest in Charlotte, for example, the number of jobs you'd have to create in order to receive incentives is going to be much higher than if you were in a smaller community in Western North Carolina, for example, or along the coast. Now, projects of every size, no matter where they are eligible for incentives. But if you are looking to locate to Raleigh, for example, the capital, the heart of the Research Triangle, and you're looking to maybe only hire 5 people, there's other types of incentives you can apply for, but you won't be able to receive money from the largest grant because you're competing against larger investments that are required to hire 100, 200 people, such as the biopharma. So we have local incentives too. So the local incentives are a little more flexible. Each county has different incentives, but there's things like property tax grants, which will help reduce the amount of property taxes, which are already very low in our state to begin with. There's workforce training development grants. Some of the communities also own their own industrial real estate, so they might be able to give discounts or lower lease rates on that. And we do have a smaller incentive fund called One North Carolina Fund. So if we go to the next slide, please. You can see an overview of some of the other incentives, but the One North Carolina Fund is typically for smaller projects, for competitive projects that are looking to locate to the state. And for all these incentives, for the One North Carolina Fund and for the JDIG, the Job Development Investment Grant, what we do as a state is we withhold a portion of the payroll tax. So the money that companies are, how do I explain this? It's the money that is coming that typically would go to the state from each employee on their payroll, on their pay stub. Instead, we were going to collect that money, and then we were going to give it back to the company instead of collecting it as a state. So what we're doing is we're incentivizing companies to hire more people because that provides access to more of the payroll tax withholdings that we can then collect and return to them. So that's why we have those factors in play. We also have some infrastructure programs. So we have methods of funding like rail spurs, for example, water lines, electricity upgrades. We can get really creative with the way that we help companies have the right site. And we have a pretty robust site readiness program that we're developing. So we have many different sites. Most of them are mega sites, but we're trying to develop as a state smaller sites that are shovel ready, have all the utilities in place, roads, everything. So if they don't have that, we have some other funding available, such as these building reuse too. We also have some funds that if you're looking to move into a existing building that has been vacant for an extended period of time, we can provide funds to help retrofit that building and make it move-in ready. We also have some workforce development and training programs, which I talked about earlier, but those are all subsidized. So if you need customized training, or if you need a specific type of training that can't be done in the school, it needs to be done at the site of your factory, we can help pay for that or incentivize that. And there's a couple of things to know about. We do have free trade zones in North Carolina. We can help set those up for you. So if you're interested in that, reach out afterwards. We also have NC Biotech has different economic development awards for companies that are looking to set up shop in North Carolina. They also have soft landing, which I'll talk about in the very last slide. So there's also NC Ag has some awards too. Right at this point in the year, they've already been dispersed, but next year there will be some more awards for new investment companies that are looking to make new investments in food and beverage or agricultural industries. Next slide. So yeah, this is the overview of the customized workforce training that I mentioned. And very high level, if you want to know more information about it, reach out and I can share some more materials. And then if you go to, let's see if there's is there another slide after that, or was that one not included? Is this the last one? Keep going, next one. No. Well, there was, sorry, the last slide should have my email on it. I will fix that afterwards. But there was another slide that I couldn't include last minute, but it was just showing some of the incubators and accelerators that are available to companies in our state. Some of them are very niche. So there's one that's specific for biotech and ag tech. So I can share information about that if you're looking to pursue that. We also have some soft landing programs, like I mentioned, at NC Biotech. There's also some of the universities have their own soft landing programs. So it's really industry specific. But if you're curious to learn more about incubators or accelerators and where you might fit into that, reach out to me and I can share some resources and make some connections.
Sounds pretty good, Justin. Thank you very much for the presentation. That was very clear. So we end our presentation today. And for the audience, if you guys have any further question or comments, curiosity, please reach out to Justin. He'll be glad to answer more about North Carolina. And if you decide to establish your business in North Carolina, please contact Drummond. We will be glad to help you to set up the entity and maintain the entity in North Carolina and a federal level. Okay? Follow us on the social media, YouTube, LinkedIn. So we'll be glad to be in contact with you and do that partnership. Justin, appreciate it a lot.
Thank you. There was a couple of questions that were sent beforehand. Did you want me to answer those or?
Well, I select, we have like a couple questions. Okay. I select one major one, more that it was very clear, the presentation, but the one that I select is what is the infrastructure does North Carolina offer to industrial manufacturing companies?
So is there a specific industry in mind, or is it really kind of open-ended, any type of industry?
You can, do as a general one. So
infrastructure, well, if you're talking about physical infrastructure, we have the port, right? So that's a very big driver of business. I have to get kind of industry dependent, but there was two incubators I didn't mention that I think are very important. So one is the North Carolina Food Innovation Laboratory, and this is a state-funded pilot laboratory. So if you're looking to develop a food and beverage product, or another type of ag product, this is a facility where you can do test runs of your product. They will work with you to develop it, do R&D, all the way to packaging, help you source the ingredients. But they have the machinery on site, so you can, and this sometimes they're larger companies that are maybe trying a new flavor or a new product, and they want to do a really small batch, or it's for someone who's scaling up, who started out at a farmer's market and is looking to produce their product for a larger audience, a lot larger customer base. So it's a very unique entity in the state. There's also the Polymers Center of Excellence. So it's another state-funded pilot facility. It's based in Charlotte, and its job is to help companies that are in the plastic industry develop their products. So they have machinery on site. They can do batch runs. They can do R&D. They can help you with marketing, market analysis to develop a product that's plastic. So whether it's packaging, if you're doing injection molding, if you are making even like a component for automotive, for example, they can help you with everything. So those are two really unique industry resources. In terms of physical infrastructure, I mentioned the port. We have great access to other markets too. So don't think about North Carolina just as your final destination. Think about it as a springboard to other markets. We also have the Manufacturer Extension Partnership, which is a state entity that can help you tap into different supply chains, and there's different networking events if you're in industry manufacturing.
Sounds good, Justin. Well, I believe to respect the time, of the meeting, so I will ask the audience to send you an email with the specific question, and send to me, Francisco, if you have any question regarding establish a business in North Carolina. And thank you again, Justin, for the presentation. And I hope everyone have a great day out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.